and welcome to Haunted Montreal's Spooky Story Sessions. I'm your host, Holly Rhiannon, and today I'm going to tell you all about the haunted nightclub at 1234 de la Montagne. Here at Haunted Montreal, we bring you ghost stories in both French and English every Saturday. Before we get into today's story, please remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell button so you get notified every time we have a new tale to share. And hey, if you're already subscribed, a big thank you and welcome back. We are so happy to have you. Now, without further ado, let's get spooky. It is rumored that guests attending a trendy nightclub at 1234 de la Montagne can enjoy some spirits with a spirit. Once the site of Joseph C. Wray and Brothers' funeral home, the building was used for decades by coroners and funeral directors until being sold and vacated in 1970 before being converted into a nightclub. Today, all 3 floors of the nightspot, now known as Yoko Luna, are reputed to be haunted, and various frightening paranormal encounters over the years have solidified the location's reputation as one of the most haunted buildings in downtown Montreal. Now a popular place to dine at night, the building was originally constructed as a family home in 1859 for a wealthy businessman named David R. Wood. In the late 1800s, the home was purchased by Sir Alexander Tillotson Galt, a politician and a father of Canadian Confederation. Galt had become linked to one of the most prominent Montreal families following the 1848 marriage with Elliott Torrance, daughter of merchant John Torrance. Galt was excited about the prospect of raising a large family, but unfortunately his wife died on May 25, 1850, shortly after giving birth to a son, Elliott. Galt was devastated that he would be unable to raise a large family, so the following year he married his deceased wife's younger sister, Amy Gordon Torrance. They would go on to have a total of 2 sons and 8 daughters. In the early 1890s, Galt contracted throat cancer and his health began to fall, so he scarcely ever left his residence. In 1893, he had to undergo a tracheotomy, an incision into his windpipe made to relieve an obstruction to his breathing. Unable to speak, he was forced to communicate with his relatives in writing only. Shortly before dawn on September 19th of the same year, Galt perished from his cancer. 2 days later, an imposing funeral was held in Montreal Cemetery, with the grim service being celebrated in the family home. His funeral would ultimately foreshadow the future repurposing of the building. In 1902, the residence was bought by Joseph C. Wray and Brothers and converted into a funeral home. It was used for decades as such, handling some of Montreal's most important burial services for the English Protestant community. In 1970, the company moved to a new facility on University Street, and the funeral home was abandoned. The building would sit empty for the next 8 years. Residents whispered rumors about ghosts in the building, and it wasn't long before the empty old funeral home began taking on a reputation as a haunted house. In 1978, the abandoned funeral home was finally repurposed and converted into an elegant nightclub. Over the years, 1234 de la Montagne has hosted celebrities including Mick Jagger, Boy George, Louis Vega, and the cast of Cirque du Soleil. While the name of this venue has changed many times, Club L'Esprit, Club 1234, World Beat Complex, Club Le Cinq, Geisha, and now Yoko Luna, there is one thing that remains constant. The building is definitely said to be haunted. Indeed, all 3 floors of the building are reputed to host spirits and paranormal activity. Starting in the basement, that is the location of the infamous ladies' washroom, which is in the same area where the funeral home's mortuary used to be. Patrons sometimes encounter a terrifying ghostly woman with a jagged scar running the length of her chest that appears to be the handiwork of a mortician. Over the years, there have been many terrifying encounters with this ghost. As such, female clients are often warned not to enter this bathroom on their own. On the ground floor, where in the past bars and a dance floor were located, during one renovation between nightclubs, workers saw a large ball of light dancing through the air towards them. When they complained to the owner, he dismissed their concerns. However, later that evening, when the owner dropped by to check on how the work was progressing, he noticed a tall, beautiful woman standing by the bar with her face turned away. Given the establishment wasn't open to the public yet, the owner was intrigued. He approached her, sat on a nearby bar stool, and then asked if he could be of help. The slender woman turned around, and the owner almost fell off his stool. The woman had no face. It was though it had been surgically removed. In a state of panic, the owner freaked out and bolted from the establishment, leaving the renovations unfinished. Also on the ground level, in previous incarnations of the building, a mysterious table near the coat check area had been known to throw itself across the room. It was rumored to be in the same location that was used for cosmetic touches before putting corpses on display at funerals. Upstairs, there are also reports that the attic is haunted. From the street, people used to report seeing the image of a creepy spectral woman in the attic's dusty window. Apparently, that is the main reason the windows were boarded up and now have been filled with greenery. The attic is strictly off limits, but sometimes people go there by mistake or out of curiosity. Once, 3 staff members entered on a dare, but bolted when they saw something floating near the wall. In another case, a celebrity's bodyguard went up by mistake. He felt an invisible presence sitting nearby and reported that every hair on his body stood up. He felt as though he were intruding, so he left immediately. It's said that it took almost a week for his goosebumps to subside. In one frightening instance that occurred around 2005, a drunken girl was warned by staff not to go into the attic. Ignoring the warning, when staff had their backs turned, she went anyway. A few minutes later, people heard a loud, hysterical screaming. Hollering at the top of her lungs, the girl dove out of the attic window facing the street and jumped off the balcony in a state of complete terror. Luckily, the bouncers at the door down below were able to catch her. They tried to calm her down, but were completely unable to. The girl had to be taken away in an ambulance. According to one witness, they used to bartend at 1234 when it first opened, from the fall of 2004 until the fall of 2006. They were there the night that the girl jumped from the window. Yes, a bouncer caught her and brought her in. She was screaming at the top of her lungs. She didn't stop, not even when the police and the ambulance put her on a stretcher. Everyone at the venue was freaking out. The witness thought that the girl was possessed for a second, as they had never heard anyone scream like that. It was definite that she had seen something that scared her to her very core. What was it, though? Who knows? With so many frightening stories emerging from the nightclub, it wasn't long before paranormal investigators began to take an interest in the alleged hauntings in the old funeral home. In 2004, a Canadian television show called Creepy Canada featured the club in its Season 2, Episode 10. The episode is simply titled 1234 de la Montagne. In the video, Creepy Canada host Terry Boyle explains,
"The building at 1234 de la Montagne in Montreal has a particularly menacing haunting. These are not passive ghosts, but aggressive apparitions whose physical appearance embodies our darkest fears."
In the episode, Magali Breton of Le Spectre de Montréal mentions unsubstantiated rumors of necrophilia within the mortuary that began to circulate when the old funeral home closed.
The 1234 de la Montagne used to be the funeral home that was very well known around the whole Quebec province. But when it closed down, rumors circulated about necrophilia, which was never proven.
Based on the information, Terry Boyle suggested,
perhaps the spirits of those people whose bodies were defiled here have not been able to rest in peace. It's possible that the perverse events of the past have left a negative, supernatural energy in the present, which manifests itself in these nightmarish apparitions of the dead.
The episode recounted the ghosts of mutilated women who had been autopsied and their terrifying encounters with both employees and guests of the club. When the club was re-baptized as the World Beat Complex after being abandoned for several years, the new owners attempted to do something about the ghosts. According to then staff member Monica Wazinski, following her bizarre encounter with a floating orb, a professional witch was brought into the nightclub to try and exorcise the spirits. The witch performed some cleansing ceremonies, and while Monica believes this helped lessen the number of ghosts, she was also pretty certain that some of the spirits remained. She said, "I think that there will always be ghosts that feel at home here, and that they are always going to be here." Meanwhile, in 2010, ghost hunter Andre Robitaille investigated the site, then known as Club 1234, for a television show in French called Rencontres Paranormal, translation Paranormal Encounters. After being invited to the club by the owner at the time, DJ MC Mario, Andre asked medium Roger Mainville to conduct a paranormal investigation. DJ MC Mario was perplexed because he had experienced paranormal activity within the building while with his wife Sandrine. In addition to witnessing doors opening and closing on their own accord, the couple heard the disembodied voices of a 10 to 12-year-old girl singing. DJ MC Mario invited the paranormal investigators because he wanted to know if his club could coexist in peace with the ghosts. At first, he was a non-believer in the paranormal, but after he purchased the club, he began to experience the inexplicable. He said, "I can't explain it, I don't know what it is, but there is something here." Paracontacts, the 12-person team tasked with the investigation, included both believers in the paranormal and skeptics. Using ghost hunting tools such as EMF readers and digital cameras, the team set out to investigate the ladies' washroom. In one photo, the image of a spectral woman's face appeared. Some members of the team then engaged in a round of table turning, a type of seance where participants sit around a table, place their hands on it, and wait for it to move. Used like a Ouija board, participants vocalize questions to prompt the table to respond. By all appearances, the team was able to communicate with various ghosts, including members of the Galt family who lived there in the 1800s. They had a paranormal conversation with the spirit of Sir Alexander Tilloch Galt's wife. Apparently, she was unhappy because of the activity of the nightclub, which she considered taboo, and to be disturbing her young daughter, who also haunts the building. Still at the table, the team from Paracontacts actually made a deal with the ghost. If the club owner started every evening by playing Mozart, the ghosts would leave the living alone. DJ MC Mario readily agreed and proceeded to play Mozart every night as the club opened. As though the ghost of Galt's wife was satisfied with the arrangement, the table began dancing to Mozart's Requiem as the team from Paracontacts channeled the spirits. However, despite these reassuring signs that the ghosts could coexist with the nightclub in peace, Club 1234 was shuttered in February 2013. Since then, it has been rebaptized not once, twice, but 3 times, with the aforementioned Yoko Luna being the most recent incarnation of the old funeral home / nightclub. Whether or not any more strange and frightening stories have emerged since the venue changes, that is unknown at this time. There are many theories about the ghosts haunting the nightclub, from members of the city's wealthy elite to the unfortunate souls who received autopsies and possibly worse when the building was a popular funeral home. While there is much speculation about who or what is haunting the old funeral home come nightclub, one thing remains certain: the nightspot is also a hotspot for the paranormal. By all appearances, this is one of the most haunted buildings in downtown Montreal. Are you a Montreal resident or perhaps a tourist who has had a strange experience at 1234 de la Montagne? If so, we'd love to know. As always, we're very interested in hearing your take on what could be going on. Thank you so much for stopping by. If this is your first video, we do hope you'll stick around for the next one. We put out new videos in both French and English every Saturday. If you'd like to learn more about the organization founded by the talented Donovan King, it's all listed in the description down below, along with links to purchase tickets to in-person haunted tours. Remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. We'll have a new video out for you next Saturday, but until then, stay spooky.